right, Shannon Sharpe, we're going to bring in our guy, the one and only, the mouth of the South, Paul Finebaum. Paul, welcome to the party, my friend.
The man.
Welcome aboard, Paul.
Good morning, Shannon.
Give us something good. Give us something good.
Great
Yeah, Paul, is Clemson done? What's the deal here?
They are done, and guess who did it to Dabo Swinney did it to himself, Molly. He has simply not adapted with the times. He refuses to go into the portal like many other coaches, like the one we'll talk about in a few minutes, Deion Sanders. He had a hard time with NIL, and I think the biggest problem is he lost the most valuable coach he has had, the coach that helped him win those national championships. Think about this for a second. Brent Venables went to Oklahoma, and since he is gone, Dabo Swinney is struggling. He is struggling mightily without him, and he's also losing. He last night was the third time in 4 games Dabo Swinney has lost, and actually 4 of the last 7, and 3 of those losses are by 2 or 3 touchdowns. This is unprecedented in his reign, and I don't think he has anywhere to turn. I think the game has passed him by, and quite frankly, he's on an island, and I don't see him getting it back.
Question.
I agree with you, Paul. I don't think they're done. I think they can get it back because, Florida State looks like to be the cream of the crop right now because of that thumping that they put on LSU earlier on Saturday night. But when I watch Clemson, Dabo says something that he's right. I haven't seen his team look this inept on offense in a very, very long time. And so with that being said, and I agree with something else you said, he's kind of like, remember Coach K? Coach K didn't want to get these one and dones, but he saw Kentucky keep getting these one and dones and keep going to the national championship. And he says, you know what? If I can't beat them, I'm going to join them. So Dabo is going to have to adapt. He's going to have to say, you know what? I'm going to go into the portal. I'm going to get some of these teams that want to leave, no matter what the situation is, and I'm going to have to give up some of this NIL money. I know you don't want to pay players. You're like, well, it's professional sports. If you play in a college, we give them room and board, we give them tuition, all that. Later for that. Now it's time for you to play these players, and if you want to compete, you're going to have to join in, Dabo.
Let me say this. Paul Finebaum, you know I love you to death. You know that. You're my buddy. Can't wait to come on your show soon, by the way. I know I've been promised you I'm coming. Sure. I got to tell you something, man. I think that you have been, or you are being, rather, entirely too cruel to my guy, Dabo Swinney. Now, you're sitting up there. Now, don't get me wrong. I do believe he's done for this season. Wow. Here's the reason I will tell you this. Since the college football playoff replaced the BCS in 2014, no team has made it to the national semifinals after losing its season opener. Mm-hmm. So from an historical perspective, to lose in that fashion, right? Not a nail biter, not a respectable performance, but you ended up losing, Paul, but to get beat up like you did, that's a problem. Now, this is a team that ran for over 200 yards and passed for over 200 yards, but still lost up until that happened. And that was 58-0 in the times that he's done that. So it's an aberration. I get where you're coming from, but what I'm saying is the proclamation or the declaration that he hasn't changed with the times, he hasn't adapted per se, Paul. I think he will, because I don't think that Dabo Swinney could sit idly by and lose like that. I mean, he's had double-digit wins the last 3 seasons. Mm-hmm. I think he'll change. I think he'll adapt.
He's a principled guy. We'll see. But I want to get into the story of the weekend, guys, and we know what that was, Paul. Coach Prime in Colorado garnered the biggest headlines. How big of an impact did Colorado's win have on college football, Paul? Put it in perspective for us.
Well, I think it's the biggest story in the sport. It may be the biggest story in all of sports right now, quite frankly. And what's so interesting is that everybody, and I'll throw myself in there, we said, hey, Prime will be lucky to win 3 games. He'll win 3 games in the month of September. That's how big a transformation this is. And you talk about the names of Dabo Swinney, Nick Saban, Kirby Smart, Lincoln Riley, Caleb Williams. Right now, as we sit here today, the day after Labor Day, Coach Prime is the biggest name in college football. And that's not an exaggeration. That's not hyperbole. That's not trying to keep up with Skip sitting next to you. That's fact. That is absolute fact. And the point
Skip now too. I'm Skip with you now too, right?
Nobody can do anything about that.
I love it. I love it. I love it. You know, listen, you're right. I mean, the first week of the season, we're not talking about Nick Saban. We're not talking about Kirby Smart. We're struggling to talk about Dabo Swinney because the loss was so bad. We talked about LSU a little bit because the loss was so bad. We give Norville some love because that's the job that Deion wanted before he ended up landing in Jackson State, and then now he's at Colorado. And we're going to watch him because it's Florida State climbs. Maybe they're comfortable with the decision they made if Norville continues to succeed. Having said all of that, just reminding everybody, only 10 scholarship players from the 2022 roster for Colorado. Deion took a lot of hits because of that, but you can't come from an HBCU as a black coach in a Big Five conference and you're taking over a program and incrementally improve. They're not going to have the patience. You got to swing for the fences, and that's what he had to do. And so when you look at the multitude of players, new players that are on this squad, 86 new players to be exact, from all over the place, high school, junior college, to the SEC, you just have to give credit where credit is due. As we were talking yesterday, Paul, Shannon and I, we talked about, because we both know Prime very well, and Prime is one of those guys that when he was doing television for the NFL Network, when he was doing television for CBS, stuff like that, he's always loved coaching kids. He's always loved coaching them on a high school level, nurturing young men, and now he's in a position where you got the backing of a program that obviously has bigger dollars. He's going to make it 400, 500,000 at Jackson State to make it about $6 million in Colorado, and we know the money that they're pouring into the program. So imagine him now being able to walk into the living rooms and convincing kids from all over the place to come to his program.
Right.
I think the nightmare is people that are going to have to recruit against him.
Play the cornerback position. He is the preeminent cornerback in all of football and for all time's sake. Look, I haven't heard Colorado talked about this much since they legalized marijuana. It was the first state. That's the last time I heard Colorado talked about this much. And for him to generate this kind of buzz, and as you mentioned, not a Nick Saban and not a Kirby Smart. You get Harbaugh because they're talking about free Harbaugh. What he's been able to do in a very, very short period of time, and I know it's only one game. Paul, I don't want to just take off running. It was one game, but I don't think very many people picked CU to win that game on the road against TCU, a team that was in the national championship game last year. For him to do that with the players that he has, like you said, he went into the portal. He said that 1 in 10 team, 1 in 11 team, 1 in 12 team. The players on there, the reason why you lost that many games, because they're not good enough. Let me go get some players that I believe that are good enough, that fit me, that are high character, play smart, play with integrity, and let's see what we do. Shannon Sanders, Travis Hunter was sensational.
I want to say this last point before to give you, Paul. They can't turn around and lose to Nebraska.
No, they can't lose.
They better win that game. That just kind of deflates everything that we've been talking about and the country's been talking about. They got to handle their business this weekend. Go ahead, Paul.
But I think the most important thing to remember, and that's always possible, Stephen A., but I cannot tell you how many athletic directors, I'm not going to waste time with it right now, pointing them out, who have passed on Deion Sanders in the last couple of years. The reason we don't want all that. We don't need the problems. We don't need the noise. We don't need the publicity. I mean, there's no way to calculate what that win meant to Deion Sanders' program and to his future. And I know I'm getting way ahead here because we're only one game in, and I'm not convinced they'll be a contender down the road this season. But he's already made himself the most attractive commodity in college football. And when this season ends, whatever Deion wants to do, he can do. People are going to come after him with the biggest contracts ever in college football. Watch out.
The one thing that I will say that shocked me, Molly and Shannon and Paul, it's one thing to have an upset victory. It's another thing for you to arrive to a 1-11 program from last year, recruit, and I'm looking at players that look faster and more gifted, more athletic than the national runner-up for the national championship last year at TCU.
Listen,
that was shocking.
I remember being like 26 at NFL Network, frustrated with my career in Prime, said, Molly, you got to believe in yourself before anyone else will believe in you.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming, sports, and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.